Yes, 2-5. Sports Reports is ordered, coming at you. We got another episode in the chamber coming up for you in a little bit. We're going to be talking about some NFL playoffs. We're going to recap what Michigan did to Washington last night. We're going to talk about some NBA trades, as far as some trades that we would like to see, or just some rumors that we've heard. And plus, we always got get it off my chest waiting for you. But I wanted to talk about this for a second. The college football playoffs have come and gone again. Michigan is your national champion. Congratulations to the Wolverines. First outright national title since 1948. First any kind of title since 1997 when they shared with Nebraska. So I just wanted to talk about the playoffs for a second. This is the last year of the 4-year playoff before we go to 12. How does 2-5 feel about 12 teams? I feel that 12 might be too much. Like, I think that in most given college football seasons, there are normally 3 teams that can win the national title, right? And it's normally like 1 or 2 undefeated teams headed into the playoffs with a couple of one-loss teams here and there. You argue about the rest. That's why I didn't like the BCS per se. I like the makeup of the BCS with the computers and the formulas. And I know people like to say that gets rid of bias, but it takes a human to come up with that formula and weigh what's important. So you still got your bias. Never going to get rid of it when it comes to college football. But, we went through this. 2015 was our first year of the college football playoff up until last night. And, by the way, Michigan won by 21 points. The average victory in the college football playoff is 20.4 from beginning until before last night. Right. So every year, you heard the stories about Cincinnati doesn't belong in because they're going to get blown out. Florida State doesn't belong in because they're going to get blown out. Everybody gets blown out. We saw Clemson beat Alabama 44-16 in one of those national title games. Right. All right. So then, next year we go to 12 teams. You got the automatic bids for your power champions. You got your one spot reserved for your best G5. Now, of course, the question is, what if your best G5 is 11-2? You're holding up a spot just to have a G5 team in. 2-5 likes the G5. I like the American Conference. I like some schools in the Mountain West. But truth being told, they're never going to win a national title. Right? And my problem is not whether they should have access or not, because I believe that they should. If they're a part of FBS, or for you old school folk, Division 1A, if they're a part of it, they deserve to have a chance to win. There's 135 teams coming soon. 133 right now. Delaware and Kennesaw State are coming to CUSA in a few years. But with that being said, if you're FBS, if you're one of those 135 schools, then what's the point of playing if you're not going to get a chance at the title? When we look at March Madness, I know it's different, one and done. But what is March Madness without Valparaiso? What is March Madness without Florida Atlanta? What is March Madness without George Mason? That's what makes the sport. That's what makes us love the sport, right? So it just doesn't seem right that with 4 teams, there were only 3% of the sport making the playoff, especially when you look at other sports like the NFL, like, the NBA, where in the NBA, counting the play-in, 66% of the teams make it in. Granted, it's only 30 teams. In the NFL, you got 14 out of 32, almost half. So why is, say, 8 too much? Like, I think 12 is a little too much, because then you start getting into territories where college football, the motto is every week matters. So you start getting into your things where Georgia's got to play Missouri again. We already saw that. Alabama has to play LSU again. We already saw that, even though we didn't care, except for me back in 2011. But this is an opportunity, because, I like to be a little radical. This is an opportunity for relegation. You take a school like, say, Tulane, who the last 2 years, they've lost a combined 3 games. They beat or 2 games, I'm sorry. They beat USC in the Cotton Bowl last year. Why not put them into the SEC, pull Vanderbilt out, pull Mississippi State or South Carolina out, and add SMU? I don't even know what to do with Liberty, so I'm gonna leave them out of that. But that's just a thought that I had, especially if we're talking about Pac-12 Mountain West mergers, you already got a relegation kind of set up already. Now, what I do like about the new 12 team playoff is that we finally have some kind of criterion, because before it was just, who do I think is the best team? That's who should be in the playoffs. Who do I think would beat who on the neutral field or be favored on the neutral field? They're ahead of them in the pecking order. Now we have criterion. Conference championships are valued. So if you're a conference champion, you're in, just like any other sport. But then the at-larges are just going to come down to the same thing as we have right now. Like, look at, for example, next year, a couple of teams that I have my eye on. Utah, returning all their offensive starters, including Cam Rising. He didn't play this year, but he's coming back next year. Are they going to get in at, I don't know, 11-1, 10-2? Are they going to get in over 10-2 Ole Miss? We already know the answer to that question. No. Is 10-2 Louisville going to make it in over 10-2 Penn State? No. So really all we're doing is regurgitating what we have minus the conference champions. So with that being said, I think 8 is perfect. You had 5 Power 5 conferences at the time. Now you don't. So 4 power conferences, ACC, Big 10, SEC, and Big 12. You have your best G5, so that's 5 spots. Now you have your 3 spots. That's where, like, looking at this year, Georgia, Florida State, and Ohio State would have been fighting for that spot. But I don't know what to do with Liberty. So I probably would have put SMU in there. So like the 18 playoff this year, you would have had Michigan as your Big 10 champion. You would have had Alabama as your SEC champion, Washington as your Pac-12 champion, Florida State as your ACC champion, and then you would have had Texas as your Big 12 champion. So that's 5. Then you add your SMU, that's your G5, that's 6. Now you got Georgia and Ohio State, and it works out perfectly, because most years it does. This is the first year that we really had controversy of who the 4 teams should be. We had other years where teams like Alabama got in without winning their conference championship, but they only had 1 loss versus a conference champion that had 2. Penn State in 2016 comes to mind. Auburn. Alabama got in the Tua year, Tua to Devontae Smith against Georgia. They only got in because Auburn lost the SEC title game to Georgia, who they beat in the regular season, and they beat Alabama as well. So these things just have a way of working out. So we don't need to reinvent the wheel too much. But the fun part about it is we get to come back in 2026 and do it all over again, because what do we do about the Pac-12? So, do me a favor, like, review, subscribe. It's all free. I will never charge you a dime. Peace.